Okay, this video needs to be made at this time. In this period in time that we are now in, with a lot of possessed, unstable people harming others, shooting others, punching people in the head, punching women in the head, this is a time in which you need to hear from Alex Ansary about what I think about self-defense. I'm not Bruce Lee, I'm not Bolo Young, I'm not an expert, but there's some things that you need to hear from me. First of all, there's major bias and racism in today's society where it's okay for a white man, it's okay for a Chinese man, it's okay for a Japanese man, it's okay for a black man, it's okay for someone from Indonesia to display the martial arts. When I did it 10 years ago, people acted like there was something wrong with me. One person made videos about me in the MGTOW movement, acting like by demonstrating how to strike, even though I promoted Gnosticism and spirituality and the real teachings of Christ, he made it out to be like I was making threats to my audience, because this is the level, folks, of mental illness that you're going to find in conspiracy circles, in MGTOW, in the dark side of the internet. Whereas you look at MMA fighters, UFC channels, ain't nobody making videos about them saying that they don't have a right to defend themselves. But see, I'm the guy whose dad got in his face at the age of 16 when I'm hitting the bag in Burke, Virginia, and he gets in my face and says, anybody can be a Rambo. Takes a real man to get an education, right? As if he educated himself about the New World Order, right? As he sits there with his occupation on this planet, hanging out with the Rambos of today's day and age, the U.S. military, right? And then you want to talk down to your son like I wasn't supposed to learn how to defend myself in a world in which he never taught me how to defend myself, even verbally, to defend his culture, to defend his people, verbally, with peace. And I'm here to tell you, folks, that I don't agree with the MGTOW movement when they said, don't protect women, don't white knight. No, men need to be men and wake up to the fact that shit's coming down the wire. And if you're not armed, right, you need to know how to fight with your hands. And I'm telling you right now, men of Christ need to know how to defend themselves. Otherwise, you can end up killing somebody. So there's a lot of hypocrisy in the pro-gun movement, right? They talk a big, big line about the Second Amendment. But do they care about people like myself that make legal mistakes when we put a poison in our body? Other than the you-know-what from the recent health event, but another poison in our body, right? Who was there to say, hey, where's Alex Ansary's Second Amendment? Nobody. So I'm here to tell you, the martial arts are in my ancestry. It did not start in China. It started in the Middle East. It started in India. And there is a beautiful aspect of the moving martial arts that a lot of Westerners don't understand. Even if Bruce Lee came and tried to teach you and be a mix of the East and the West, as he was a quarter Germanic, if I believe correctly what I remember reading. He was a big inspiration to me as a child, but so was a man of Japanese heritage who was an extra in Andrew Dice Clay's Brain Smasher. This man was deadly in his prime. And the stuff that he told me was very interesting as a young man. And I'd like to share some of those stories in the future, although I would need to do so with his permission and his blessing. But the fact of the matter is, if it wasn't for that man, if it wasn't for this man of Japanese heritage, my own Miyagi, so to speak, I would not know really how to strike. And even though he didn't really teach me as much as I wanted to learn, and I had to fill in the rest for my own, he did pass on some amazing things to me. And so I am here to carry on the tradition and pass it on to you. And just remind you, there's a lot of sick individuals out there on YouTube that think like people like me should die and be bombed back to the Stone Age, while their cowardly government drone attacks people because they don't have what it takes to eradicate terrorism in the Middle East, because they're cowards. And so the fact of the matter is, they act like it's okay. They act like it's okay for whites, Latinos, and Asians to display the martial arts. But they act like other people should be passive. They act like it's wrong to work out. Well, they work out, right? They're working out, and they're saying, hey, wait a minute. Why is NBC News saying far-right extremists are hitting the gym? That's bullshit. And at the same time, out of the other side of their mouth, you hear this anti-immigrant sentiment talking about all the men coming across the border that have big chests that look like they're, military build. It's completely hypocritical for them to be pro-gym, pro-workout, but if you see a Middle Eastern person or someone with that heritage who's fit, who can defend themselves, right? They act like a threat. And so it's because I displayed the martial arts in the past on video, that certain things were done to me, and certain people bared false witness against me, and certain people even hated me. And so this is not the time for my life story. Oh boy, that's coming. This is the time to talk to you guys about street smarts. Now that we've talked about bias and how a lot of people try to shut me up so that I wouldn't really be able to help you defend yourself, now it's time to take off the gloves, so to speak, not just on Satan, because I am an asset of the Creator, and it's because of that that God has allowed me to exist this far, up until this point. I've had guns pointed at me. I've had people threaten me in Costilla County saying they could shoot me dead with a 30-06 from 1,000 yards down the way because they hated me, right? You think that stopped me from speaking, right? No. All it did is just wake me up to the true evil and demons living inside people. So people want to act like it's okay for them to do MMA. It's okay for them to earn belts in jiu-jitsu. But a person like me is meant to be passive and just take a beating, just like my father tried to give me a beating. Until one day, he tried to throw me up against the wall. No, I pushed him back against the wall. But I never beat my father. But you know what? I had to put him in his place at the age of 16. When he came at me like that, anybody can be Rambo. Let me just say this. I acted in a way that made it very clear that he was never, ever, ever going to do that to me again. And he called the cops on me. Wouldn't be the first time. So I'm here to defy my father. I'm here to defy my mother. I'm here to defy the evil in this world and tell you what you need to know about self-defense for the streets. The first thing that you need to know is there are maniacs out there that are driving too fast and driving too slow. And you need to do everything in your power to avoid road rage. Even if somebody pisses you off, even if somebody has a bunch of right-wing stickers or a left-wing stickers and it triggers you, you need to have the self-discipline within yourself to keep it under wraps. I'll admit it, folks. I don't like people that speed past my residency, but this is a residency. This is a neighborhood where children play, and nobody should be driving their sports cars like gangsters, doing stunts and spinning around and shit like that, okay? Because decent human beings live in this neighborhood, thank God, for the most part, that I'm aware of, right? However, I got that solar energy coming right in, right? Which is just feeding my DNA, just giving me that life force energy. And so I'll admit it, I'll do 70 and 80 sometimes down Main Street on my way to the grocery store, and I'm moving around people, and I'm psychically in tune to these jackasses that think that they're gonna pull in front of me, right? And so it's like you need to be aware from a defensive driving perspective that there are people out there that are out of their minds. And so when you go to the grocery store and when you're walking down the street, you need to be aware there's a lot of unstable people out there that are gonna bump into you because they're not paying attention. It's your job to be a defensive driver. It's your job to be a defensive walker, right? So it's not just the driving, it's the walking, because people are out of their mind. Don't get so quickly disrespected in your head and thinking that you gotta go to blows because somebody bumped into you. You need to be psychically aware enough, intuitive enough, right, to be aware of what's coming at you. It's called peripheral vision. And so don't show fear to these thugs that are in the street, because thugs smell fear. And when thugs smell fear, even if you try to hide it, right? In comes the blow. It was 2007. 5 black males were smoking cigarettes outside this pizzeria on 4th and Washington in downtown Portland, Oregon. I walk by and they blow smoke in my face, and I turn around and say, "Don't blow smoke in my face." And there comes the blow, followed up with a front kick right to my solar plex, knocking the wind out of me. I was not prepared, right? I should have known that that was coming, that sucker punch was coming, right? And in this lifetime, folks, I have never assaulted anyone. I have never sucker punched anyone. I have never attacked anyone from behind. I swear before Christ, the Quran, the Buddha, the Krishna, and Zoroastrianism, and everything else related to the religious books. But people have treated me in my life in many, many times. Not only have I been assaulted and attacked, and had to flee danger, even at the age of 14, when I tried to defend my Vietnamese kid from 3 punks, including Isaac Pankey, who straight up shot a guy years later. It's like when I looked him up one day, because I knew his name, I wonder what happened to that black guy that used to pick on me and take my basketball away from me and berate me, right? He ended up killing a man. And yet he never got in trouble early in life. He was allowed to have a firearm. It was yours truly that made mistakes. And so there's a lot of people out there that are hypocrites with all these violent movies, with all these serial killer movies, and they have the gall to call other people violent, to call other people terrorists, right? When they do what they do. This is obsidian. This is not the same thing as worshiping crystals. I'm also wearing obsidian. I also made this necklace myself. And so when you make things with a desire to serve the Creator, to protect your energy field from harmful forces, you are not worshiping the devil. You are not worshiping false idols. This is a combination of frankincense and myrrh, which is approved in the Bible. Jesus used incense. And so I will burn incense to protect myself from negative energy and to clear out my own negative energy. I also stopped using sage because I found it to be ineffective. There's also Palo Santo. There's also cedar. There's also sagegrass. This is also one of my favorite ones. This is from Dynatron. I believe this is Lasertech. Laserhawk. Preparedness in mind, body, and spirit should never remove the martial arts movements. Preparedness isn't just about preparing for bullets and guns. If you have a legal right to own those weapons, you need to prepare with other things. And you need to know how to use the weapons that you purchase from Amazon, that you purchase from the Asian World of Martial Arts. I have never, ever, ever in my life maimed or harmed or assaulted anyone, even in self-defense, with these weapons, because God has not sent those things against me. When those young black men attacked me, not that they were arrested, okay, I was not carrying anything. And who knows what I did that attracted that attack to me. But I tell you what, in the streets, you can't be stupid. You can't have your ego bruised and be like, oh, bro, don't be blowing smoke in my face, because that's when it comes. And if you're not ready, and if you're not paying attention, and worse, you have a woman with you. And around the wrong thugs, you have a beautiful white woman with you. Or say she's a beautiful black woman or a Latino woman and the thugs are white. There's multiple groups that are threats now, folks. If you have a woman in your life, your woman should know how to defend herself, and she should know what to do in the event that shit goes down. My Japanese friend back in the day who dated my mother, 1982 it was. According to him, they were walking down the street after leaving the discotheque, and a couple men started following them. And again, he was built like Bolo Young, a blood sport, but different, but similar. And he's aware they're following both him and my mother. And then he says to my mother, here, take the keys. Get in the car, lock the door. Do not open the door. Do not unlock the door. Get in the car. So she gets in the car. And in one motion, releases the sports coat that he's wearing and drops them both with 2 strikes. Okay. In a lot of cases, if you're going to strike, like something at a Karate Kid, strike first, strike hard, no mercy, sir. No mercy, sir. If you're going to do that, you have to do it without warning. But you need to understand the law is not going to be on your side. The law is going to be against you. And so thank God I haven't been put in some of those situations. But the way things are going, folks, you need to be prepared for things that you might not be expecting. And so this is something that I picked up. This is something from Amazon. It's called a Big Rick stick. And I remember taking a Kung Fu class on Southeast Belmont in Portland, Oregon in 2007. And I remember engaging with one particular drill in which you and a partner, you strike sticks, you meet the stick at the top, down to the bottom, back up to the top, down to the bottom, back up to the top. There's also the 12 or 15 strikes where you're striking in a particular kata or form. These things are valuable. See, I don't watch the UFC. I don't watch martial arts movies addictively, although I did enjoy watching Bloodsport again now that I'm getting back to working out and back to training. But I don't do MMA and I don't work out with jiu-jitsu folks because a lot of those folks are not spiritual. Okay, they're into violence, they're into being number one, and again, they're hypocrites. They think that it's okay for blacks, whites, and Asians to do the martial arts, but they're gonna treat people that are ethnic minorities like they're fucking terrorists, that if they have any muscles to them, that there's some sort of a threat. And just listening to MAGA, keep listening to them. Watch out for these Middle Eastern people that look like they've been doing their push-ups. Fucking bullshit, man, fucking bullshit. The Shaolin Temple was visited by an Indian monk, I believe by the name of Bodhidharma, that taught them some of their original martial arts techniques because during that time, the Buddhist temples in China were being raided, were being invaded, and they were getting their ass kicked and they were falling asleep during meditation. And so this guy comes in to say, you have to take care of yourself. You just can't meditate and meditate. You have to be strong. And so the original story of the Shaolin Temple is a story about a man of Indian heritage, and some say that there's a Muslim influence over the early martial arts. And that's where I think within my DNA, within my junk DNA, not only is there spiritual information within me, right? But there's also other information there as well. So I remember the A-man working with me. I've never done Chi Sao, never trained in Wing Chun. So this isn't Wing Chun. There are parallels to it. But just going back and forth right here with the hands, and also Qi Ball exercises. These are things that I do, right? Along with Qigong, okay? A lot of this is self-taught, self-mentored, self-directed. Bringing in that energy and bringing it down, okay? So we're talking about a combination of activating your internal energy through certain exercises combined with striking properly and going back and forth in basically a mix of a hard and soft style. And so in the way that I train by myself, even though I don't have a partner, is mastering the same defensive techniques over and over and over again. So I'm just gonna go over this once, right? Someone's coming at you with a blow or a series of blows or haymakers, right? There are certain ways, once you learn how to deflect with circular motion, for example, this way to the inside, and then going the same directions, right? So going the same direction, palm strike, going the same direction, palm strike, or bam, bam, and you have to be able to do it automatically without thinking. And so when it comes to street self-defense, you need to think beyond the box of just boxing, but also having a soft style that deflects these haymakers, as they're called, windmill attacks, hooks, things of that nature. In the old days, a lot of people couldn't fight and they would, fight like that. Now you got more dangerous people running around because they're MMA trained. And they think that it's okay to beat somebody in the ground into oblivion until they're nothing but a bloody pulp. So we've got dangerous SOBs of the modern Karate Kai, Cobra Kai attitude and sort, right? Cobra Kai isn't just a TV show. It's a mindset, no mercy. We have that same no mercy attitude from a lot of people that are in MMA. So there's a reason why I never got involved in MMA. There's a reason why I never got involved in watching the UFC and being a fan of the UFC, although I liked it when it initially came out, but not what it turned into. Although you can see in MMA, small fighters, smaller people like myself, weighing in at 165, 5'6", 5'7", that are absolutely dangerous. There's Bas Rutten, there's others. And so having something like this, which is legal, and knowing how to strike with it, and if you have a bag, right, you would want to practice with these sticks. If you're out in the wilderness, you would want to be able to, let's see if I have, this came from my former land in Colorado. I took some wood that came from the trees there. I forget the exact name of the tree. And so even though I don't have a bat, and I actually have moral qualms with the act of hitting someone with a baseball bat, right? Back when I made mistakes in the late 90s, and I did certain drugs that ended me in legal hot water, I was ripped off by one of these Hispanics who gave me bunk, who gave me crap. And I get out my baseball bat and I basically say, give me back my money now or else. He didn't. And I did not have the heart to assault him. So I let him burn me. And there were other times in which I had certain self-defense items on me in which a tall black man had burned me also. There was lots of that back in the day where I made the mistake of copying from the wrong folks. And because I was an addict at the time, and because I wasn't in my prime, I let these bastards walk all over me because I didn't have the killer instinct within to take my money back. And some of you would argue and say, you should have, right? Or you should have in that situation in which that guy took your camera out of your hands in 2016. You should have showed him who's boss. I could have showed him who's boss easily with one hand tied behind my back, but I didn't. I didn't harm him. And yet people acted like I was some sort of a bad dude because I was demonstrating strikes on trees, showing circular motion. And I also did Tai Chi as a young man. And so right now, you have a lot of criminals running around with guns, with weapons, that are brainwashed by violent video games, that think that it's okay to jump people in the street. And I'm here to tell you that preparedness isn't just about, for some people, guns and food. You need to know how to fight with your hands so that you can avoid murder, but you also need to consider those things in your life as far as spiritual protection, including coming to the true Christ, including seeking to be a true asset of the true Creator. And I'm telling you, if you attempt to serve the true Creator of this world with all of your heart, with everything that you've got, you'll be amazed at what the Creator will do for you. You'll be amazed at the evil that the Creator will remove from your life. In a day and age where any of us can be killed at any moment, at any time, we want to be in a psychology state of mind to where even if we end up killed out there in the streets, we know that what we did in this world was right. And because of what I'm doing and because of what I'm saying, I declare that my words will be heard in 100 years. And some of you will come to my aid after I'm no longer in the flesh, and will make sure that that happens, because I'm going to live for something. Because you're either going to live for something or you're going to live for nothing, or you're going to fall for anything. And there's a lot of people in this world that have accrued a lot of knowledge in this world about spirit, about the martial arts, about the corrupt system. And some of them, they're going to take this stuff to the grave. And so as for my friend in Portland, Oregon, I would say, who's watching this, you tell me what you feel is right when it comes to self-defense. But you did pass on certain things to me. And so I'm going to pass on certain things to the audience. You didn't take me as far as you could, but you told me what you could in the time that we had together. And so, even if you're afraid and you're scared for your life, don't show it to the wrong people, because they will walk all over you and they will hurt you and they will enjoy hurting you. Okay? In some cases, right, even if there's some legal issues that may come, you need to be able to defend yourself in dangerous situations. And so if you're dealing with multiple opponents, the goal is obviously to be able to knock each one of them out or stun them so severely that they don't keep coming after you. So if there's several opponents, for example, and you've trained properly, and you've done your waist twist, and you've done your exercises, such as with the hands open, like this, where you're building those side muscles back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, to where you're able to zone right in and do as much damage as possible with each blow that you drop. But by the power of Christ, in this lifetime, and I'm now 43, I have never, ever, ever been in a situation where I have had to even punch somebody. There was a situation in which someone came at me when I was working at the Portland Preparedness Center in 2011, and he threw these windmills at me, already having been trained by the A-man. I caught one blow. I caught the second blow with the leg, sweep with the leg onto the ground, couple backhands to the head, right? Not knocked out. He kept coming back for more until, of course, he was finally restrained and the police came. A lot of people in this society in that situation and the situation that I was in New Mexico would not use restraint, okay? They would be using elbows. They would be stabbing. And see, there's a reason, folks, that I don't walk around with knives. Even if knives have a place, morally, I have a hard time with the idea of harming someone in that manner. And so I have not been seriously damaged or harmed or knocked out in this life, nor do I have any memory of knocking anybody out, including my own father. Going back to him, one time in Portland, Oregon, when we were living near Wilson High School, I come home after he's been drinking. Of course, him having the privilege of being an immigrant that came over in the late 60s, early 70s. So nobody's going to be attacking the home, our apartment in the late 90s, as he's playing his Afghani music, embarrassing the living daylights out of me with that shit on max, right? Yada, 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 whatever. And he's being abusive to me, and he's yelling at me, and he comes at me, and I push him back with so much force and strength that he seemed to fly up into the air and fell back on his ass, right? And there's a lot of people out there that have hit their parents, that have hit their spouse. I have never beat a woman. I have never beat a man into submission, and a man has never beat me into submission. Because even before I got on this path of telling the truth, there were always angels with me. There were always angels with me that kept me out of danger, that warned me in some cases to stay out of certain circumstances. And in this day and age in which these demonic portals are opening up, we need to up the ante. We need to up the ante, okay? And maximize our likelihood of getting through dangerous situations by not attracting certain things to us. So there's a lot of people out there that think about maximum damage, right? The ASAP spring baton that can probably break bones and shit. Do you really want to break somebody's face in? Do you really want to smash someone's teeth in? Or do you want to use the minimal amount of danger in order to stop the threat? Okay? So I'll tell you what. We live in a day and age in which a lot of people are running around with heavy firepower in this nation and in this world. And a lot of them won't think twice about doing serious damage to somebody. There's lots of videos, for example, of individuals getting pushed, right? Simply getting pushed, and them straight up pulling out a shotgun and blowing the guy away. I saw a video that was very shocking and violent on social media. But yet we also have other situations where somebody merely resists someone trying to steal their camera out of their hands, and the person bears false witness against them, claims to have an injury when they don't have an injury, right? And somebody can end up with problems and being slandered when all they did is resist somebody trying to rob them of their camera. And so what I have come to learn is that there's a lot of sick, demented people in this world, including martial artists, that will train the martial arts themselves, but bear false witness against others if they train the martial arts or try to defend themselves, right? Complete hypocrites, which is Satanism. What we're basically talking about as we enter into October 31st, which we're now in, Halloween, we are talking about Satanism. We are talking about the dark arts. We are talking about people that slander. We are talking about a society that engages in false flag attacks and blames innocent countries for things like 9/11, and then it engages in a genocide. This is a spring baton, okay? This is a spring baton, and if you know how to use one of these, you can stop certain attacks, but it's all a matter of the wrist. Okay, so in this situation, with the wrist, train the forearm muscles. Instead of having a big old bat or an ASAP baton, something like this may look like a weak, right, pussy weapon, but it's not a pussy weapon in the hands of someone that has snapped their wrist. And so you have the temple, you have the collarbone, you have the jaw, right? You have the top of the head, the bones here, bones here, bones here. So it's not a matter of bone breaking. This is not going to shatter a number of bones. like an ASAP baton, it's going to be a very painful sting. And so you might be able to neutralize a threat coming at you without using such force that you cause permanent damage. There was also someone that was attacking me online in the comment sections, who himself interviewed a guy by the name of Freddie Lee. Freddie Lee is a martial artist who teaches Chinese Kung Fu, and I believe that he speaks out against the aggression and the violence in MMA circles, for example. And so I believe that they did an interview together. And yet this person still had a bias against me for his own reasons. He also used to work for Alex Jones. And on that topic, the vast majority of the people that used to work for Alex Jones are pure evil, right? Not only do they knowingly take part in propaganda and fake news to a certain degree, earning money from Alex Jones until Alex Jones got rid of them, right? So their hearts aren't pure. The only people that used to work for Alex Jones that I think are any good are the folks over at Truth Stream Media. That would be Melissa and Aaron Dykes. And though we never talked in depth, they were kind to me in the past when we did share some text messages back and forth over social media. They did not break their confidential agreement with Alex Jones, which every employee has to sign, but they were aware of me. So were other Alex Jones employees aware of me. Mostly they knew to stay away from me, and they considered me to be their enemy. And even after Alex Jones fired them, many of them would still not talk to me. So I'm here to tell you that it's hypocritical for people to be fans of Alex Jones, fans of Donald Trump, fans of guns that could kill somebody dead, but criticize me for trying to share with you the lighter side of the martial arts. I'm not a black belt. I'm not some badass. I'm a small guy, but I'm a small guy who in reality is the Dynamite Kid, who in reality doesn't draw negative attacks towards me and doesn't go out looking for fights. So I don't go out in downtown, right, where there's shootings and there's attacks and things of that nature. And even when I was younger and put myself in dangerous situations, right, when I was an addict in the late 90s, it's amazing how I was never harmed during those years. And so I can tell you, even though I had some legal issues with the cops, I have never been manhandled by the police. I have never been maced. I have never been attacked with brass knuckles. I have never been attacked with a baton. I have never been attacked with a chain. I have never been stabbed. And so I have never broken a bone. I don't go out of my way to harm others. And I'm totally against those individuals in our world that harm others and create false flag attacks that are blamed on innocent people, because I have stood up for millions of dead human beings that used to be alive that are now in the spirit world. And I'm telling you, a lot of these people that are running around, they're engaged in violence, they don't do shit to stand up for the victims of war. And so I recommend that you carry legal weapons that are allowed by law, and that you avoid shooting somebody dead. And if you think you're some sort of a tough guy, whether you're a Donald Trump supporter or a military veteran, brother, you ain't tough if you're relying on your 9mm. I mean, I'm a dude who doesn't have a 9mm, right? And I'm going through life, right? I don't go into bad neighborhoods. I don't go into dangerous nightclubs. I don't do stupid things. I do the right thing. But I do know that the situation is so serious now that even men of God could face demonically possessed people coming after them. And that's why I'm here to tell you that you need to meditate and pray, okay? Engage in meditation. Engage in circular motion training. I don't see anybody in MMA doing this. This is not Chi Sao, right? You see what I'm doing? I'm moving in the same direction. So anything that comes at you like this, you can deflect and snap back, right? Not to use a movie as a reference, but you remember Daniel-san in The Karate Kid 2, in which he had that type of drum, and then he had that snapping power. As every time that Japanese villain in Karate Kid 2 came at him, you would snap with the power of the waist and snap again. And so I advocate martial arts training for men and women. Women should know how to develop a palm strike. They should know where to strike. It's not just about kicking to the groin. They should know about eye gouging. If a woman is going to be a bodybuilder, right? And some of them take roids now, although that's been happening for some time. I do not support the use of steroids, but I understand why people end up taking steroids, because we're in this rat-like cage world, android ape world, in which I talk about on my other Substack page, in which people are obsessed with bigger, faster, stronger. People have egos. People have insecurities about their dick size. And then, of course, we have the reality that some people are so dangerous that some people, because they don't want to take chances, and some people may have been put in the hospital when they were younger, they may end up unconsciously going in certain directions and abusing human growth hormone, because as far as they understand, they can't take a chance by being weak in a world that's becoming increasingly dangerous. And I'm here to tell you, you do not have to run around with 1,000 guns. You do not have to run around acting like a tough guy or acting threatening to have the means of defending yourself, okay? If you pray to God on a regular basis and you speak up for innocent people and you stand up for the women that have been brutalized by the evil of this world, and there's so many ways you can do that, you're giving yourself credits with the Creator, and you're keeping some of that demonic interference at bay. So there's a lot of people out there that have promoted certain hand weapons on the internet, and these are things that I've carried for years. And so if you're dealing with a certain situation in which there's multiple attackers, I'm just going to tell you this: a lot of the brass knuckles that are out there are garbage. And there are certain types of knucks which fit the human hand in a more perfect way, okay? Now, my hand, even though I'm a small guy, I do not have a little hand, and I have a big, big foot. I'm size 11, right? Some of you might not know that. I'm not size 9, I'm size 11, okay? And so, a hand of this size, using some of those classic $9 knucks, I understand if you don't have anything else, but you want to find something that not only fits your hand, but doesn't cause bone damage when you hit the back, because you need to be able to actually hit a solid object and maintain the integrity of your bone structure. Back in the old days, in the 90s, at the Portland, Oregon gun shows, there was a family there from, I think, Roseburg, Oregon, and they would sell something called lead knuckles, which, of course, I only had to use, I believe, in one situation. A thug by the name of Chris O'Neill in 1996, I took him out with a clothes hanger. When he came at me with some martial arts kicks in the 8th grade, right, I had to stay after class at Jackson Middle School, and he was bragging about being a martial arts expert. I was taking Taekwondo at the time. And so he comes at me, right? So I tell him to F off. He comes at me with some multiple kicks in the air, and I just step to the side and take him out with one blow. Not a knockout blow, but something that set him on his ass. Well, he became a gangbanger, and he got involved in selling crack cocaine. So he starts hanging out with some black thugs, and we're talking dudes that are 6 foot, 6'2", and he's coming at me, and I have the knucks with me. He's coming at me in 1996 by the Barber Boulevard, Fred Meyer, where I used to work for 3 years. And so while his black friends didn't catch up to me, Chris O'Neill caught up to me. And I don't know whether I connected, right? But my hand did go towards him, and he did go to the ground. He may have, in Matrix style, deflected my strikes, but I did not stay there to then take on a couple black 6'1", 6'2" individuals. My ass was gone. And I went into Fred Meyer's. There were other situations in which he was hanging out with somebody who was like Biggie Smalls, the notorious Biggie. Giant dude, right? He tried to sick some giant dudes on me because he was involved in the drug trade with these dudes, and they were submissive to this little white guy, if you can believe that shit. But they were. So this dude literally tried to get people to come after me. And I'll tell you what, even during those years, I think that there was an angelic presence around me that kept some of that interference at bay. And I got plenty of stories that I can tell you. But I will tell you this. I got so excited, I broke my incense holder, by the way. So for those of you that want to donate also, there is a PayPal link down below. And I don't recommend that you join my Substack, because Substack, it appears that Substack pocketed $150 that a friend named John sent me. And so I'm here to tell you that even though I'm posted on Substack, it does appear that they are involved in a certain amount of corruption. They will allow people to donate money to a website, and they will have options for people to sign up with subscriptions, right? If they want to be a member, but they will do it even before somebody adds their bank account information. And they also keep a lot of that money, just like YouTube keeps a lot of that money. So instead of me trying to make money on YouTube with my main YouTube channel, engaging in clickbait, hoping people give a damn about me and share my videos, I'm actually going to encourage some of you to support me financially to the tune of $25 a month to $50 a month if you are financially able, because what's needed is about 10 to 20 of you to do that. And it may take 6 months to a year to get that financial support for me to be more financially independent. So if you appreciate videos like this and talking to you about a wide variety of things and calling out the dark side of the conspiracy movement and all the forms of racism and the left-right paradigm and so much more, right? There's a link down below for you to support. This happens to be weighted at the end, as you can tell. And so even though this is wood, folks, and it's not an ASAP extendable baton, in the hands of somebody that knows how to move with this, right? But what do I know, man? So many times in which people have come at me, they've taken my camera away, or they've kicked the camera out of my hands. And I'll be honest with you, that's not awesome to go through. When you're in a situation like that, I said in the recent video that I was in a situation in Portland, Oregon in 2014, trying to get a dime bag of marijuana at Waterfront Park. And these individuals kicked the camera out of my hands when they were advancing towards me. So the black guy kicked the camera out of my hands. His white buddy picked up my camera, threw it in the river. And then a big Hispanic bouncer looking guy gets up like Bolo Young in Bloodsport. I was break you. In case I actually fought back. And as I screamed at them, I'm homeless! I'm homeless! One guy said, you're not homeless, you live in your truck. I was being attacked by demons, right? I should have had this. Rather, I should have had this. So, bear spray. You've seen it at the protests, right? The ridiculous liberal use of bear spray in many situations, but this is actually something that can be a much more effective weapon than other things. In some cases, you don't want to use a weapon. You don't want to make contact. You want to be aware enough, intuitive enough, be using your peripheral vision to the degree that you sense an attack before it happens and you can act appropriately. This was something that I picked up a few months ago after never ever having mace. I didn't even have mace when I was living off the grid in Southwest Colorado. Everybody around me was firing their guns, it seemed, screaming inward, 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 right, into the air, right? Neighbors joking about eating and raping Iranians. Other people on my property praising Adolf Hitler, saying we should pray for Adolf Hitler, literally in that hellhole of an off-grid environment that I used to live in. Thank God I'm not there anymore, right? But I sat up there and I worked out with one dumbbell. I sat there with a tree in which I had the rest of it trimmed down, and I put a focus pad on that tree, and I would work on my strikes, okay? And it sounded like a machine gun to a certain degree. Bop, 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 bop. So instead of people hearing me fire guns off in the air like I'm some sort of Rambo tough guy, I'm using my natural God-given right to self-defense, but I never had to defend myself in the entire time that I was up there. And I was up there in an area where nobody will hear you scream except maybe your neighbors. But will your neighbors actually come to your aid if they hear you scream? And are your neighbors a threat themselves? I knew in my heart that that place was not an ideal place for me to remain if the shit were to hit the fan, because there was way too much hatred coming from certain individuals who I will hesitate to call men, but people that were involved in their own local right-wing militias, Donald Trump worshiping militias in which they celebrate on social media the murder of innocent men, women, and children in overseas countries. They celebrated it, and they would celebrate it with memes, and 65, 100, 200 people would like those memes. I was literally surrounded by psychopaths with massive machine gun firepower, and anything could have happened to me in those years in which I was up there, and they would have got away with it. They would have got away with burying my body. They would have gotten away with chopping me up into different pieces and littering my arm and my leg in different areas of the hill of Southwest Colorado, but it never happened. Despite their hatred of people like me, right? Despite other unfortunate things that were done to me, no physical harm came upon me in the time in which I was there. And so even though I've said to God, the way that Jesus said to God on the cross, "Why hast thou art forsaken me?" In truth, God hasn't forsaken me. God has had my back. And in this video, I'm having your back. And I'm telling you, you should have pepper spray. You should have something like this. You should avoid stabbing somebody. You should avoid dangerous batons. You should avoid dangerous weapons. And you should opt for the least amount of response to stop an attack. You want to stop an attack, but not to the point where you kill somebody, right? There was somebody who tried to add me on Facebook the other day who murdered a man in October of 2019, who's also into a lot of disinformation, who put a lot of good info out years ago, and then he went off the deep end and became a psychopath. And I'm sick and tired, right, of these disinformation psychopaths entering into my field of reality. I want nothing to do with them. And I have intuition, a stronger intuition than I've ever had before. And so when these demonically inspired alternative media folks email me or try to add me on Facebook, right, I already know what they're about as they enter in my field. They don't know that I'm sensitive to that. They don't know that I'm that tapped in, but I am tapped in, and I know when I'm dealing with individuals that are not walking in the light. It would be 3 months ago that I picked this up out of intuition, when also my mother said, yeah, I think that it's time for me. And she also lives in an urban area where there's a lot of anti-white attacks by black thugs, also a lot of other violence also in her area. And so this is not to say that everybody that's ethnic is involved in either terrorism or violence. Obviously, there's a lot of decent Muslims, there's a lot of decent Christians, although there's a lot of right-wing, white nationalist Christians that don't know jack shit about the true teachings of Christ, because if they did, right, they would never mix the idea or act like they're followers of Jesus when they hate on individuals. And in fact, I think that a lot of the neo-Nazis of today's day and age are probably going to incarnate into the bodies of people like me in the future. And in the future, people of my DNA are probably going to be exterminated by the robots, just to be frank, because I believe they got 100 years left before the major extermination began, which is why you need to ride like Paul Revere, with my words, with my information, with my teachings, and make sure that when I'm gone, my information is not gone. 1 month ago, I go driving down the street, and a woman who walks her dog past my residency was fighting off another dog, and she has a cane, right? She has a limp. And so she's fighting off this dog, and I pull over, right? Already seen her walking by where I live, and I pull over and I ask her if she needs help. And then I ask her a second question: should I use pepper spray on the dog, right? Because it's her decision. What do you want me to do? And I walk up, and it was that simple, and it was done. Didn't have to punch the dog, didn't have to hurt the dog. The dog didn't even make a sound. The dog just stopped what it was doing and went over to the grass and started doing this. And so in review, let's take a look at what I got to eat tonight. We've got discounted beef from the grocery store. You can go ahead and give me that vegan argument, but if you're a vegan, do you have any evidence whatsoever that you have ever stood up for the victims of war? If so, drop a link. If not, stop running your mouth about your moral high ground. If you don't care about human beings. Raspberries, 99 cents. Cheeseburger flatbread, $3.15. One of my favorites here, organic tropical passion fruit. Actually went completely refined sugar free for a month and coffee free for a month. Although today I had my coffee, even though it was gas station coffee. It feels good, folks, to be back online. And I did a lot of self-healing in the years in which I didn't upload. It's probably not the right time to get into that. But there's a reason why I stepped back from the internet. There's a reason why I even stepped back from working out and meditating in ways that I used to meditate. And there's a reason why books like this, even though JP Haggard doesn't actually want to be my guest, I learned a lot from this book, Mechanics of Demonology. And a friend sent it to me. I'm getting somewhere, folks. A friend sent it to me in 2014, and I never read it. Yet the whole time in which I was homeless, I kept this book with me, and no harm came upon my person. There were bad things that happened. We can talk about it another time, or I'll put it in my book. But it's very possible that when you're a man of God and you're speaking up for the millions that have been slaughtered and you're attempting to be an asset of the true creator, if you walk around with holy books like this, even if it's not the Bible, but it's speaking truth and it's standing against these demonic forces, you might be protected by something that you don't even know, understand, or at the time even believe in. And so for years, I thought this book was I wasn't drawn to read it. All that changed 2 months ago. I started looking at my bookshelf, and then I just felt this gravitational pull, you know. And I picked it up and started flipping through it. And by the way, the swastika was taken from India. So while they hate on these places and they hate on those people from those regions, they actually have borrowed the symbols from those regions, symbols that used to mean good luck and prosperity, and they have been used for wickedness, and they have been used for destruction. And so I would advocate that you mix a combination of martial arts defense. You can do plenty of things on your own. And if you have one man who's not totally feminized, who wants to learn how to throw a punch, who wants to know how to defend oneself, you don't have to go full MMA and beat each other's ass. You can engage in certain drills where one strikes and then you deflect, just like I did with my Japanese friend back in the day, although we should have done more of it, you know. And so in the same way that you might engage in a parry, either this way, which is also part of Jeet Kune Do, Bruce Lee's system, parry this way, down. And if you're dealing with some of these fancy kickers, right? It's not like we're in the 70s anymore where everybody was kung fu fighting. But when you're dealing with a lot of these wild kicks, this is where circular motion can come in and take somebody off their feet, right? Who's going to kick in a wild way against somebody who actually knows how to deflect that attack. You should engage in speaking up for others, speaking up for those that have been brutalized in this world, that have been murdered. You shouldn't murder yourself. You shouldn't have intentions to murder. You shouldn't hang out with murderers. You shouldn't support murder. You shouldn't support those that support murder. You shouldn't support those that murder. And you should see the hypocrisy in modern law enforcement. You just can't sit there and criticize the FBI and law enforcement for allegedly arresting Donald Trump and then believe every time somebody's charged with something in the criminal justice system that the cops are telling the truth, that the plaintiffs are telling the truth. The reality is Satan is using the modern criminal justice system against a lot of good people, whereas there's a lot of bad people in this world that murder people, that kill people, that bomb them, right, with weapons, right, with drones, because they're not man enough to fight them on the ground. that are treated as heroes. And so while they might get away with it till they're 60, they're 70, they're 80, what's coming for them in hell, what's coming for them in the abyss, is a whole lot of beatdowns and a whole lot of whippings that they think that they're not actually going to have to deal with and face. Because there's a lot of people out there that think that there's no karma, that they could just ball false witness against other people, and expect God to help you out in your time of need, in your wilderness. Because there's a lot of people out there that have fled to the wilderness thinking that they've fled the thugs in the city without realizing that if you've done wrong, if you've harmed people's reputation, if you've actually tried to engage in propaganda to encourage other people to harm someone based on information, don't act like God's going to protect your ass when the shit hits the fan and China and Russia is invading America. Now saying what had to be said, I can now close, right? Women need to learn how to defend themselves. Men need to be prepared to defend women. And you should be working with other people, learning how to defend yourself in an effective manner without causing permanent damage.